Hey everybody, welcome back to the Meaning Forge. I wanted to take a moment and explain to you how grateful I am for you watching this content. I'm also extremely grateful for the interviewees and the people who have taken part in this Meaning Forge process. This entire experience has been extremely meaningful for me, and as in a way, really listening and connecting with these people has empowered me, influenced me, and is constantly inspiring me. I want to take a moment and thank everybody who watches and who comes on the Meaning Forge. And remember, this content is for everybody. I want to find meaning and how we make meaning in our life. I want to tackle one of the hardest questions known to man. And it is so hard because everybody has a different method for it. So hopefully together we can find some underlying motif on how we find and make meaning in our life. I invite you to always like, comment, and subscribe. Share this content. Take snippets out and clips and share with your family and friends. Go to the final words or go to the sections for the hammer, the sword, the pen, and the crown. And pull out what is most impactful to you, what really speaks to you, and share that. Watch out for Meaning Forge as we expand onto other podcast platforms, which will soon be in the descriptions for all interviews. Again, I invite you in this journey with me. Let's tackle the hard questions. Let's figure out how we make meaning. And let's figure out how we can be better people and forge individuals. Enjoy the interview. Hey everybody, welcome back to the Meaning Forge. I am privileged and honored to have rather an interesting guest and someone who I really have taken a lot of inspiration from, and even my own personal poetry writing. So we'll probably be talking a lot about that. His name is Alan Levi Simmons, and he is a United States Marine Corps veteran who deployed to Iraq and Afghanistan. During his deployment, he sustained a rocket-propelled grenade blast and sustained a traumatic brain injury. After his deployment to Afghanistan, Alan was honorably separated from the Marines, completing 4 years of active duty service. After his time in the Marines, he battled with PTSD, post-traumatic stress disorder, addiction, and suicide. It was through faith, community, and his desire to live a purposeful life that Alan decided to fight trauma with poetry. Poetry became a weapon that would help him rise above his thoughts of death, depression, and anger. His battle with traumatic experiences inspired him to write his first book, a collection of poems titled Can I Speak? His book has sold already over 2,000 copies, and he has spoken to multiple middle and high schools across the states of North and South Carolina. Not only that, but he is also a nonprofit leader through Live in Love Incorporated, where he has assisted students who are having a difficult time in facing multiple traumas. He owns Persist, Motivational Clothing, the Purpose Podcast, and Brunch with Ties and Heels. As an engineer and entrepreneur, he found purpose in inspiring those who are looking for their purpose. And I cannot wait for this conversation. So without any further ado, let's get into it.
I like that, man. I'm over here like I wanted it to keep going because it was so smooth. Dang.
Well, Alan, welcome to the Meeting Forge.
Yeah, welcome to the Meeting Forge. You should have just said, "Welcome to the Meeting Forge." It should have been some like 6'5" guy that was like muscular. Welcome to the Meeting Forge.
I don't quite know. Like, I think there's a mix between like incorporating like the Spartans theme and like a huge like blacksmith or something. Well, I don't know. We'll figure it out.
It's like Thorish too. It was almost Thorish.
That was one of my old promos. I don't have it up in here anymore, but because I changed my symbol, I had to update some stuff. So
yeah,
but it's good, and I thought it was really appropriate because it's the Phoenix. It's rising from death, and so it's gonna be great, man. I can't tell you how awesome it is to have you.
I appreciate you, James. Thank you.
Well, let's just first start off about, I guess, the favorite question that everyone loves, no matter where you go, is tell us a little bit about yourself. And I think that's where we'll start. And then we'll kind of start developing it from there.
Okay. Well, hello, Meeting Forge family. My name is Alan Levi Simmons, as he said before. I am from Charleston, AKA, well, not AKA, but I'm from Charleston, born in Charleston, from Summerville, South Carolina. And I am a dancer. I love to dance. I'm a poet. I love people. I'm passionate about people. And I am currently in Raleigh, Durham, North Carolina, and living my dreams. So if you think you know me, you may not really know me. If people are watching, they're like, I know Alan, you may not know me. There's some things that a lot of people don't know. And I'm hoping that I can unleash some things here so that people could find out new things about me.
I guess the question I'm asking is, so could you elaborate a little bit more on your experience in Iraq and Afghanistan and how the Marine Corps has helped shape you into who you are today?
That's a good question. So when I deployed to Iraq in 2008, 2009, I was a young buck, fresh corporal at the time, and I was motivated, dedicated to the Corps, your Corps, my Corps, Marine Corps. So when I got to Iraq, Baghdad, Iraq, I was on an individual augment. Never had I ever deployed before. So this was a culture shock, but it was something that, the Marine Corps prepares us for. So when I got there as an electrician, I became a radio operator, which was a really cool thing because I worked in a joint operations center, and I would, every day I would have to give reports to our generals and all the higher ups that were there about significant events that were happening around the Providence, and I would have to tell them about roadside bombs. I would have to tell them about suicide bombers because, Iraq war and Afghanistan war are totally different. So while I was there, it was a shock because I knew that there was a potential of me getting hurt, but I was not, I wasn't in infantry, so I wasn't out there fighting with the Taliban. But I was playing a significant role for our route clearance teams and also for the motor T guys that were traveling on the roads. I would have to tell them, before they left base, like, hey, you guys are traveling down XYZ. There was a bomb there last week. It was so cool because I would be able to see like everything that was happening. Imagine watching like CSI or all these like crazy TV shows, and they're all in like this room, and they're like, oh, if you look here, this and that and the third. And I was doing that, and it was so cool to be a corporal speaking to colonels, lieutenant colonels, and captains, and so it was pretty awesome to have that experience. Afghanistan was when it really got real for me because, Iraq, I saw the vehicle explosions. I went out in town, and after a big explosion, there was a VBID vehicle explosion, and people were on the streets laying there. People were holding their family members, crying. And that was the first time I ever saw something like that, in war, and then you get to Afghanistan in 2010, so we're 2 years later. I'm fast forwarding. I'm in Camp Pendleton, and I'm getting ready to deploy with EOD, Explosive Ordnance Disposal Company, their first EOD. And, I'm an electrician, but now I'm playing a role as a support personnel and administration assistant, AKA do what I say and shut up. That's that's pretty much what they did with me. I had no say so. And, the EOD guys were different. They were different because their life is literally on the line, and they lost a lot of people, man. There were so many funerals, so many things happening before we deployed. And I was afraid. I was nervous and I was scared, but I had to do it. So when we got to Afghanistan, they told me, because I was late for our picking up our weapons at the armory. I was late. I was about to miss the whole move, the whole deployment. I was about to miss it because I decided to get drunk in California. The night before our deployment, I got wasted because I was afraid. I was living it up. I was like, this is it. My birthday's coming up. My birthday was actually the day that we were leaving. And, so I partied really hard that night, and I got to the armory really late, and I got a page 11. So pretty much I got written up. For those of you who don't know what page 11s are, I got written up. And then when we got to Afghanistan, instead of them putting me on Leatherneck with the other support personnel, they were like, Simmons, you're going to Marja. And I was like, oh, wow, this is about to be a tough deployment because everybody's after me now. And in the Marine Corps, if you mess up, people are going to make sure that you know that you messed up. So yeah, after a while, of being there, I would go on some patrols in the convoys. And then there was this one day where I went on a foot patrol, and that's when all hell broke loose with the Taliban. So I don't know how far you want me to go in there, but as far as with leadership, that really shook my world. And it taught me a lot about life and death. It taught me the value of being around other Marines, because there were people there that I looked at them and I was afraid, and they were like, come on, we got to keep moving. We got to keep going forward. So that kind of, that instilled this kind of fearlessness inside of me, that even though I'm afraid, I have to be fearless. So I'll pause right there and let you.
No, that's perfect. That's perfect. It's like, it's almost better to, I'm going to steal a line from a video game. The video game is Skyrim, but one of the major character says something along the lines of, is it better to have an easy life, a good life, or to have great deal of struggle overcoming great evil? It's really good. And I butchered it a little bit, but you can kind of see that in a lot of different stories that we have out there. And so I appreciate you. Was it on that deployment that you had your run-in with, we'll call it, with the things that will set you up later in life?
Yeah, man. One day they asked me, they were like, hey, Simmons, do you want to go on a patrol? And I was like, yeah, sure. I'm going on a patrol, presence patrol. So presence patrol means that you're just going out there to ensure that everybody knows that you guys mean good, and that they could come and talk to you guys at your forward operation base. Right. And so that morning, James, it was so crazy. The lieutenant, I think it was a lieutenant, he was like, all right, so we're setting up this formation, and we're going to go out there in the V formation, and so-and-so, you're here, Simmons, you're up here, point. And I was like, wait, hold on a second. I said, you want to put the black guy up front? They would start laughing. They're like, I was like, the black guy always dies first. Like, where are you guys doing this to me? I was dead serious. I was like, you guys are trying to kill me. Because everybody knows you don't want to be the point guy, you don't want to be the middle guy, you don't want to be at the end, right? So you want to be somewhere in between that. So this is this being my first patrol, besides boot camp and MCT. I was really nervous at that point, and like I said, I was attached to EOD in Afghanistan, so I was in charge of the IED course. Whenever troops would come into country, I would take them through the IED course and teach them, oh, this is what you look for: disturbed earth. If you see gravel on the top, when it, you see rocks on the top, or you see a bottle on the side of the road, you see a bush on the side of the road, all of these things. But I did not know that was preparing me for what was going to come that morning. So we get out in base and we're walking, and in Afghanistan, I call it moon dust. Like the sand is like, you just sink your feet all the way in it, right? It's just like, it's not even like sand, it's like dust, moon dust, right? And you're just, your feet like flour, you know, you could just sink in it. So I'm like looking at the sand, I'm looking at everything, and I'm just scared. And so we cross this footbridge and we get to this house, and there's people there. We're talking to them. I see this guy in the back. He's on his phone, and he's like, you know, looking up. And I'm like, hey, there's somebody back there. He looks sketch. They're like, Simmons, you're just scared. Like, calm down. Everything's okay, right? These guys drive by on a moped, ride by. It's 3 guys, one on the handlebar, one driving, one on the back, right? 3 guys on the moped, and they look at us. They wave, inshallah, inshallah, right? So we wave back, right? And didn't think anything of it. And we start walking, and we go down this rat trail. Think of an alley, but in the desert, right? And we go down this rat trail, and this kid comes outside, and he's like, da, 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 you know, and it was speaking Dari language. I'm not trying to make fun of their language. I just don't know what he said, but it was da 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 da, right? And our interpreter, he was like, the Taliban. He said the Taliban just put a IED in the road and told everybody to go inside. I was like, oh, you know what? Like, here it goes. So I start walking. We're walking. I'm in a V formation. I'm the point guy on the right side, and you know, I'm looking at the ground. I'm walking in this garden, and you know, you got the, you know, when you plant seeds in the garden, there's these hills, you know, that they plant the garden in, so the seeds on the top. So I'm looking at this. I'm just like, oh, I don't want to step on a pressure plate, IED or whatever. So I'm taking my time. I'm walking. I get to this intersection, and this is where my faith kind of kicks in. I'm this Baptist born Charleston, Somerville, you know, Southern boy, you know, in Afghanistan. And, you know, I was baptized back in the day, but, you know, my life didn't look like it. You know, I was in the Marine Corps, right? So I had the belief, but I wasn't living a lifestyle, right? So I say all of that to say, when I got to this intersection, I was in the intersection, and I'm looking down my rifle scope, and I'm looking around, seeing if I see anybody, see anything. And I hear a voice, James. I hear a voice inside of my head. It's not Alan. It's another thing. It's something else. And he says, look by your foot. Now, I've been wrestling with this because I heard the voice, but then I also know that I've been through the training as well. I've led people through the ID course, but I feel like that wasn't the thing that was kicking in at the time. When that voice says something, I look by my foot, and there was a haystack. And I'm like, okay, a random haystack on the side of a road, you know, this is really random. And the voice says, lift up the haystack. I'm like, okay. I lift up the haystack. I'm pulling it up. And I see a tank. I see like a metal tank, right? And remove it, and it's a propane tank, right? Like you're grilling out. It's a propane tank with a cell phone strapped on top of it, some batteries strapped on top of it, wires strapped from the phone to the batteries. And I was like, oh, right? And deer in the headlights, stuck, standing there, you know, and I was like, IED, you know, and I didn't run, I didn't move, because you didn't want to set off secondary, tertiary devices. So luckily my sergeant he's the EOD guy. He was wearing a Thor pack, radio jammer. And luckily I was within that radius of the radio jammer for it to block any signals from the Taliban. And he comes over there, he puts the pack down. We do a 360 around the bomb. You know, everybody's going in their separate way, you know, and just kind of sectioning off the bomb. And I'm in this ditch right now next to my other point guy. And he was like, all right, Simmons, you all right? And I'm just shook. I'm like, I don't know. I'm scared. Like this, like I didn't know what to feel at that time. I was just scared.
Yeah.
And he's like, all right, we got to go clear this house. And I was like, dude, I just was next to an IED. Like, what do you mean? So we go anyway. We pop smoke, get across the field. Right. We go to this house, get in the door. There's a man and his kids in the house, and they're playing in some clay. And we're like, stay here. Obviously, they knew to stay there, of course. So we go outside. Fast forward, this guy's running. Right. And he's wearing a blue vest, like a bulletproof vest. And he has a radio device in his hand, and he's running the opposite way towards a tree line. And he's moving really fast, running. I'm following him with my scope. And I don't want to say the guy's name. So the other Marine that was there, he calls into the command and he says, command, possible Taliban, can we engage? Does he have a weapon? Not sure. He has a bulletproof vest on, a trigger device in his hand. Can we engage? Does he have a weapon? They asked us that like 2 to 3 times, I think. And it was like, no, they were like, don't engage. As soon as they said that, this guy disappears in the tree line. Imagine some woods and you're just walking into the woods, right? So he disappears into the tree line, and next thing you know, and like just muzzle. I see the muzzle flash from the tree line. I hit the deck, I hit the ground, and I start shooting back, right? And the me at that moment was so scared that I put my weapon, you got single shot, and then I put it on burst, and I'm like, and I'm just shooting. And the guy's infantry. He's like, Simmons, take your weapon off of burst. You're gonna jam your rifle, And I was like, So we start laying down fire, and fast forward, all of this is happening. It's hot outside in Afghanistan, midday, hot as hell, and I'm scared, and he's like, all right, we have to bound back with the rest of the platoon. And I was like, dude, you want to run while there's bullets flying? He's like, yes, we have to go back. So we do. I'm up, you see me, I'm down, right? We're running, drop to the ground, running, drop to the ground, right? And I don't know if it was taking too long, but so we're running, and next thing you know, this RPG blast happens. Like, I don't know how far it was from me. All I know is that it pushed me in the air and it pushed me backwards, and I hit the ground, and I hear my ears are ringing like a smoke detector. My heartbeat singing loudly, slowly fading into a whisper, right? That's just what I felt like. My heartbeat was slowing down and my ears were ringing really loudly, and silence happened. And, I'm laying on this ground, and my heartbeat stops and my ears stop ringing. And next thing you know, some part of me is sitting in a dark room, Indian style. The only time I did that was boot camp in elementary school. So here I am in a dark room, Indian style, and I'm not sure if I'm dead. I knew that I was in an explosion, and I knew that my ears were ringing and my heartbeat stopped, but I didn't know what was going on. And then next thing you know, I'm back, and I'm like, I'm grabbing my legs, grabbing my arms, grabbing, like my sergeant was on top of me, shaking the crap out of me. Simmons, get up. And I wake up, I get up, and I'm like grabbing my body. And they pull me off to the side, and we keep fighting, we get air support. And, everybody made it back after all of that. It was a little long fight. And that was the 2 significant things that happened to me, 3 kind of things that happened to me during that fight. But little did I know that my life was about to change after that.
Yeah, I can only imagine the after effects, and I think we at some level we see those after effects.
Yeah.
And it's just it's rough. So you go through that experience. You then you finish your time in the Marine Corps.
Mm-hmm.
You get out, you go to school, and this is when you publish your book.
Kind of, sort of. I dropped out of college a couple of times.
It's okay. It's okay. Not everybody's, the straight and narrow path for college. Yeah. So it's okay. Mm-hmm. And would you mind, I guess, how is college? Why is college important to you, and how did that shape you?
That's a good question, James. So college is important to me because it was something that I had to prove to myself. I had to prove to myself that I wasn't just this traumatic brain injury, PTSD veteran who could not keep memory of everything he read, who could not focus inside of a college classroom, who threatened his professors. Like, I was just a loose cannon at that point in time. But, I didn't believe in myself. I didn't see myself walking across the stage because I didn't think I was good enough. I was like, I'm just a Marine who was just good enough to go to Afghanistan and Iraq, and that was it. But after a while, I met my wife, and I realized I kept kicking myself in the butt about dropping out of college. So I enrolled back in college in 2016 at UNC Charlotte, And I was like, I'm going to complete this engineering degree, no matter what. I'm going to complete it. And, you know, I got on academic probation because my GPA dropped to a 2.0. Again, I struggled with physics, calculus. Those were all difficult, especially if you can't memorize things. And your ability to learn has kind of changed because of your brain injury. And you can't really explain all of those things. So school really made me who I am today. It made me the man that I am today because I had to persevere. I had to, this never stop, never quit, repeat, persist, motivational clothing. This never stop, never quit, repeat became my life's mantra in college because I did not want to quit again. I did not want to be a quitter. Didn't want to be a college dropout. So that's what it did for me, bro.
That's awesome. So you just said, I'm not letting this thing beat me down, and I want to keep going.
Exactly.
I like that. So after your time in college, just I guess if you wouldn't mind summing up after college to now.
Yeah. So graduated in December 2020 recently, and you know when COVID struck, you know, so I had a virtual graduation. But I landed a role with IBM, you know, awesome. But you know, and that was something I never thought would have happened as well, bro. Like I never thought that I would be working for a company like IBM. I never thought I would be in software support. Like this guy, like the college dropout, the 2.0 GPA, the academic probation, the suicidal thoughts, the depression, the alcohol, the marijuana, like the everything. I didn't think that those things define the man that is standing here today, but those things made me who I am today, you know. And you know, so I started I was like, you know what, if I want to do this, you know, I need to publish this book. So I published the book, you know, and within my senior year at UNC Charlotte. And then I was like, I want to speak to students. So I started my nonprofit Live and Love, and I started going to elementary schools, middle schools. I spoke at UNC Charlotte this year. I spoke at UNC Charlotte, you know, and it all started. The light came on. I was like, wow, everything I went through, this is the purpose, because there are other people who have traumatic experiences that are different than mine, but they are suffering and they need a voice. They need a light. So I took it upon myself to be that person, to provide a platform at the brunch events for people to come to learn and talk about purpose, you know. So the experience has been really good because I have the Purpose Pod. I've interviewed over 70 professionals, you know, we're here on a podcast right now. And, you know, being people who probably never went to school for podcasting or broadcasting or anything, you know, to take on that task to put ourselves out there to the world, just so that we can inspire and bring change is a big thing. So, you know, that's where I am now. And I'm speaking, I'm motivating people. I'm doing the podcast and I'm writing another book. So it's looking up from here.
Heck yeah. All right. Perfect. All right. So
I'm sorry, I like that. I gotta do a lot of different things now. I gotta change up the game. I'm sorry, bro. You killing me with
man.
this.
You're good. You're good. So here we are talking about the hammer, right? And this is where we start to forge ourselves. And like we've taken a bunch of different materials, we're bringing it together, and you know, it's again, I can't say this enough. It's never a straightforward, perfect process. Right. Or perfect materials too. So you may have imperfections in your materials and stuff like that. You bring it together. There's a procedure you have to follow, and you have to go through this stuff, and you have to do it right. And if you don't do it right, then you walk away with some issues. Not that they're good or bad. It's just that's what it is. Yeah. So let's first talk about, from your experiences, what has been some of the hardest parts of making who you are today?
I love that. So I'm probably keep saying that. I love that because these are good questions. So, but you know, like I could think back to when I was in Virginia, going to Old Dominion University, and when I dropped out of school, I was really battling with PTSD heavily at that point in time. This was like 2013, 2012, 13. And, I was working at the parking. No, I was still in school at that time because I was working at the parking service office there. I was giving people tickets, and I was at work one day and I just broke down crying, and I didn't know why I was crying. So here's the hammer. There's everything like that I was going through that was shaping me. It really hit me at that moment. I was like, I just broke down crying. And he was like, "What's wrong, Alan?" I was like, "I don't know." It's like, "All right, we're going to call a VA and get you to the Veteran Affairs so that you can be seen at the mental health facility." So I'm driving down from Virginia Beach to Hampton, Virginia, which was a good 20-minute, 30-minute drive. And I noticed that I am thinking about crashing my car. I'm thinking about crashing my car into a pole, into a wall, into another car. And I call a brother, my fellow veteran, Marine Corps veteran, who was with me in Okinawa, Japan. I called him and I was like, "Hey man, I'm not going to be able to make it to the VA. I think I'm going to kill myself. Can you come to my apartment and get me?" And he was like, "Simmons, I'm at work." I was like, "Please." Marines, we stick together. So he was like, "All right, I'll be there." Dang, I'll be there. Right. And so I get home, I'm pouring my bottle of Jack Daniel and I'm smoking my pack of Newports. And I'm just stressed out because I don't know what's wrong with me. And I get to the VA. Well, he picks me up, drive to the VA, get there. The lady at the front desk says, what's wrong? And like she saw the tears, she saw everything happening. And the moment she said that, broke down in another burst of crying and don't know what's wrong with me. They said, "Well, we can take you to this room, take your shoestrings, take your belt, and give you some medication. But you won't be able to say when you're ready to go home. We have to say when you're ready to go home, or we can give you some medication and you go home." I said, "Give me the medication then." Give me the medication. I'll go home and deal with it. Right. Probably the wrong choice for me because I found myself, in my apartment with my gun in my mouth, that one night, and I had my pills on the bed. And there's this part of my poem. I'm like, gun in my mouth, pills in my bed, Bible on my nightstand, paranoia tiptoeing through the hallways of my home, gun in my mouth, finger on the trigger. I'm knocking on the doors of heaven, wondering if anyone's home, thoughts scrambling in my head, panic attacks. I'm trying to blow a hole through my head. So like at that moment in time, I never knew what it felt like to want to die. I never knew what it felt like to want to end my life by my own hands. But here I was, and I didn't think I could stop, and here's when the hammer really hit, because that same voice that spoke to me in Afghanistan came back to me again. And it just so happened that this Bible that my grandmother gave me was sitting on my nightstand, and I used to keep it by my bed religiously. And, this light was shining through the window from the street light. It was just all biblical at that moment. And I look at the Bible and like this kind of conviction hit me. It was like, man, like I'm about to kill myself. Like what's going to happen next? Right. And that voice says, "Alan," like not out from the clouds, but just in my own self. He said, who are you to end your life when I brought you from the land of your enemy?" James, lie to you not. When that happened, I broke down crying. I'm in the fetal position on the floor, and my pistol is right next to me, and I fell asleep crying because I was so shocked that happened. The next day I pawned my gun, and that's where the faith kicked in. I started pursuing God. So
Okay.
Hopefully I answered that question. That was my hand.
No. That was really good. And so like, I mean, thinking about that, it's like you have if you allow me to kind of, my way, kind of summarize this, maybe like you have these sets of experiences, like these are now the materials that are coming up to this point in your life. And it's this like you're struggling through this, right? Like it's just it's life, right? Because the meeting forge, unfortunately, it's not always fun. It's hard.
Right.
And these things start to crash together very quickly. And as they start to crash together, that's when you kind of start to see that beautiful, I would say almost explosion, because I'm kind of using my own language here to
go ahead.
Kind of start to see a beautiful explosion come from that, and that's like an inner light that just like starts to explode, and from that now you have that purpose and that light. So
yes, exactly.
Yeah, I like it. That's really it's really powerful, and something that I think we kind of just have to say to kind of get it out there too. So anyone who's watching this, please, if you have suicidal thoughts, anything, go to call a friend, call a buddy. If you're a veteran, please call a battle buddy. There's plenty of organizations out there that are supporting you, and get seen. Like get seen. And don't try and be a hero or anything like that. Just try and get someone to see you.
Yeah.
So okay. And I guess so. Like you said, this purpose is now kind of revealed to you.
Mm-hmm.
Can you elaborate on that purpose a little bit more, if you don't mind?
Yeah.
Like what was that purpose that just kind of came at you?
Yeah, the crazy thing is, my backstory back when I was like 14, and for those of you who are listening, like I'm a Christian guy. I'm not like religiously like out there trying to push everybody to my faith or anything. I believe that everybody should believe in what they want to believe in, and you figure it out along the way, because that's what happened to me. But when I was a young teenager, I had this encounter with God, and it was very supernatural. So I've had all of these supernatural experiences my whole life now. And after that experience where I was going to commit suicide and God spoke to me, I say it was God. Some people say the universe, whatever you want to call it. God spoke to me, and crazy things started happening. People at Old Dominion University, like there were dudes coming up to me, like telling me their whole life story, like things that they were struggling with, just talking to me randomly. Like, man, I'm depressed, suicidal. I'm addicted to this. I'm addicted to that, and they would just blurt it all out. And like, literally, I can't make this up. God would give me something to say to them. Like it would be something that involves their past, something that they experienced, that traumatic experience. And like, it would just be open to me like a third eye type thing. And it's like, hey man, I know this is weird, but I'm going to just let me do this, and I would start talking, and people were breaking down crying on campus because they're like, this dude is telling me stuff that nobody knows. And I'm just like, yo, I don't know what this is, but like God is speaking to me, and he has a purpose for me, for people. And literally, like, that's when I started to kind of sense it. I didn't tap in all the way because I was still me. I was still struggling. I was still young. I was still trying to live my life and didn't want to be all like with God and stuff. I just wanted to be on my own, but as time progressed, I found myself being drawn to these people that was at this church, and it was this supernatural church where they were prophesying. And it wasn't like the whole, like you see on TV where they're like, turn around 10 times and God's going to give you a blessing. It was really like, it was real. The first time my friend, he invited me to this church, and I was like, man, I'm not going. Like, I'm drunk. Like, I'm not going. Right. And he was like, man, just come. So I went, and it was at this prayer night. This pastor was praying for a bunch of college students, and I can't make none of this up. So this pastor was praying for a bunch of college students. It was like 7, 8 o'clock at night. And, my friend was like, go up there and get prayer. I was like, I don't want this guy praying for me. Like, what are you going to tell me stuff that I already know? Right. And I get up there. This pastor's like, he's like, all right, son, just close your eyes, lift your hands, and let's see what God has to say. I'm like, okay, so I do this, close my eyes, open one, make sure he ain't trying to rob me. Right. I'm just like, and he starts praying for me. He's like, wow. He's like, you've been through a lot of stuff, man. The moment he said that, I just broke down crying. I was like, God dang it. Like, I just got too much going on. He's like, man, you wanted to take your life. Like, God's brought you from some difficult situations. And I'm just like, whoa, wait a second. Like, how in the world? I'm asking my friend, did you talk to this guy about me? No, bro, I've never talked to this guy about you before. So I was like, all right, I got to go back again. Let me fast forward this. So I go back again, And he keeps doing the same thing. I go there and I'm broke. I came there on E. My gas was on E, and I had no money and I had nothing. And I go up there and he's like about to pray for me. And he's like, wow, I can't even pray for this young man right now. He didn't know my name at the time. I can't pray for this young man right now. He's like, what God is asking me to do is to take up an offering for him. I break down crying again. I'm like, God, how? Because I was broke, bro. When I talk about broke, I was the whole BROKE. I was broke. And so that happened. But overall, that's where I started finding my purpose, though, because I realized that it was God wanted me to do something with him. It wasn't about religion. It wasn't about getting people to be Christians. It was like God wanted to speak to everyday people who were outcasts, people who were like, oh, I was raped, molested, or, you know, they were homosexual or whatever they were, people that you would think were outcasts from God. God was sending me to them because of their experiences and telling them like, hey, God loves you. Like, he wants to talk to you. He wants to communicate with you. He wants to be a part of your life. And that really opened me up to my purpose, to where I started inspiring people, learning how to communicate to people without seeing their skin color, their faith, their beliefs. You know, I just saw the person as a spirit and as someone that was connected to me and God. So that's where, you know, my purpose really kicked in through ministry. That was a big part of my life, man.
Okay, so you have made your sword effectively. Like, this is who you are. Like, you've made an embodiment of something that represents yourself, and you stick it beside you, and you're carrying it every day. I don't actually know where to go with this. I would ask is, how do you use your sword? In this case, it's synonymous with purpose.
Well, I use my sword, one, to communicate effectively by connecting with people for their most vulnerable, transparent selves, for who they are as a person. Looking at all of my flaws, my sword is even more powerful because I don't use it to smite people or to knock people down, but I use it to build them up. I use it to empower them. So, you know, motivating people to never stop, never quit, repeat, motivating people to say, hey, if a screwdriver has a purpose, you have a purpose. So I find myself empowering people all the time, no matter where I am. People lean on me, and I believe it's because of what I've been through and how I stand on that and not allow that thing to sink me, but I use it as a leverage, you know? So, I think, you know, I just use my power of speaking, my power of taking words and empowering people. I feel like that's my sword right there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I love it. And I don't know how many videos interviews you've watched where I sit there and like I ask, you know, like, are we using the sword correctly and stuff like that? And that's exactly what I kind of allude to typically is the sword. We always kind of think of it as a weapon. But in reality, I don't know if it's really a weapon. I know it's a tool. But I always question, how do we use the sword? And I guess the next way I would frame this is, do you see yourself as giving, you know, your sword away to people?
That's a good question. I think if I was living in a Marvel world, right, where my sword can now be duplicated and replicated, and you know what? Scratch that. Let's not even use duplicated or replicated. I use my sword to help forge other people's sword. The purpose inside of them. I use my sword to sharpen their sword. They say iron sharpens iron, right? So I use my iron of a sword to sharpen their purpose, and they can then use their sword to do the same thing for others.
Absolutely. So I always kind of go to this scene in a movie. It's a beloved movie trilogy of mine. I don't know how big of a Tolkien fan you are, but have you seen Lord of the Rings, the Two Towers?
I have seen Lord of the Rings. I don't know if I've seen the Two Towers. That was like what,
Almost 20 years ago, actually. It's like 20 years ago.
Yeah.
So there's a particular scene in the Two Towers where Gandalf is coming into Edoras. That's the king. That's the home of the Rohirrim, the kingdom of Rohan. And the king is decrepit and broken, and he's completely distraught because he's actually being possessed by Saruman, who used to be a good wizard, now turned bad. And he's being possessed, and Gandalf expels Saruman. He then, as King Theoden starts to kind of like wake up, you start to see the gray go away, the corruption leave, and he looks at him and he says something to the effect of, "You will remember your strength if you pick up your sword."
That's powerful.
Exactly. And so then he picks up his sword, and it's like all of his strength comes back to him. And he is now the king of Rohan again. He is King Theoden, and he is able to at least lead his people again. And I always find that scene empowering because it is exactly that. And the same thing comes with Aragorn later on. The sword that's broken in the original fight against Sauron, the bad guy, cuts off his finger back in like several thousand years prior to the events. Is reforged, and it's in that moment that he receives a sword that he accepts the mantle and then goes forward again.
And so something there,
yeah, go ahead.
Because I think that's so. Like you telling me this, like I'm a visual person, so like you telling me this, I'm like envisioning all of this stuff right here, and like with the first guy, right, the king, right, so. Yeah, and he has all of this like pretty much evilness and stuff like that over him before he takes on his sword, and he says, once you take the sword, you will then be the king, right? I really believe that he was the king before he took up the sword, right? So a lot of times people think that they're without purpose. A lot of times they feel like they need something else to make them into the person they desire to be. But I tell people every day, I'm like, the gift is inside of you. Everything that you ever wanted, that person, the millionaire, the billionaire, the teacher, the podcast host, whoever you are, it's inside of you, and your job is to unleash it. And the second guy, you said that he accepted, right? What you said he accepted.
So Aragorn is essentially he's like the, to get like I don't want to get super technical, but he's pretty much a line of kings that hasn't seen the throne in quite some time. Like he's not exiled per se, but he's kind of exiled.
Yeah.
And so he eventually takes up, like, the sword is reforged, and it's taken to him so that he can go down. Essentially, he can go into grab the army of the dead and use them to save the day in a major battle that's coming up.
Yeah.
And that's kind of one of the things, and one of the key highlights I kind of want to, I think, maybe allude to is this idea that with King Theoden, the first one, it's Gandalf that comes and expels the corruption. Right. So sometimes we need that help to expel the corruption, to see, maybe even see the corruption.
Yeah. Right.
And then when the sword, or that revelation is given to us again, because it's given to us, we are able to pick it up and go, oh, this is my purpose,
right?
Or I'm supposed to achieve this goal.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, we need the iron. We need other people to help forge ourselves to be the people that we desire to be, and then the acceptance, self-acceptance, and even a reflection of like, oh wow, this person is not who I desire to be anymore. I want to forge myself into something different, something better. And the key to unlocking it, like, somebody could come and empower you all day. I could go empower millions and millions of people. But if that seed of hope isn't inside of them, or the desire to change isn't inside of them, my empowerment won't be effective. So the like, people coming in our lives and helping us become better is a part of it, but we have to understand the greatness inside of ourselves, that when we accept it and we allow hope to fill us up, we can then be empowered and be effective.
Yeah. Yeah. Go ahead.
No, I was like, that's life. It's real life. And like, we have to be able to take from different things and be able to apply it to ourselves. And I wanted to say this real quick.
Yeah, go ahead.
I know you can cut it out later, but but I did a brunch one time and I had a screwdriver, and that's why I was talking about a screwdriver earlier. So I was going to my brunch with ties, and there was the guys there, and I did not know what I was going to talk about. I just knew I was going to talk about purpose. So I'm getting out of my car and I'm like, man, what am I going to do? These guys are expecting something great. Like, what am I going to do? Go to my trunk and I'm looking at my tool bag and there's a screwdriver there. And I'm like, I'm taking a screwdriver with me. I'm going to figure something out, right? I go into the building, I'm looking at a bunch of men and I say, do you guys know what this is? I'm like, it's a screwdriver, right? And I was like, yeah. I was like, so what is the purpose of a screwdriver? And we're like, oh, the screw and unscrew, duh, right? So I was like, all right, break yourselves off into two groups, and I want you guys to come up with different ways to use a screwdriver. So we came, the guys, they broke off. It was fun. They were like, all right, you could defend yourself. You could scratch your head. You could prop open the door. You could open the can. You could start a car. You could do all this stuff, right? And I was like, all right, so a screwdriver can serve many purposes, right, in its own lifespan. So what does that say about us? And I wanted to ask our Meaning Forge family, what does that say about you? If a screwdriver that was built or intended to screw and unscrew, but when put in the hands of something or someone else, it can do multiple things. What does that say about you? So don't box yourself in with your purpose. Know that you can serve many purposes outside of your one ideal purpose.
I like that. And on topic of purpose, I would say aiming at the highest possible purpose. So like all other purposes point to that.
Yep.
So like it doesn't matter, right? If the purpose, if my purpose is to help people, right? And all I have is a screwdriver, I could find a way to use that screwdriver multiple ways.
Come on.
Exactly. Yeah. I like it.
I like that too. I'm gonna take that. I'm gonna take that.
It's great. It's great. All right, Alan. So we have gone through the sword. We talked about purpose and, essentially making that purpose, enacting that purpose. And a close friend of the sword is the pen. And my personal take. And the reason why is because I think they're made of almost the same substance, like the same metaphorical substance, right? They both do the same things. Both of them can leave scars. They can empower, reveal things to people, and it's amazing when you start kind of breaking it down, almost what the two can do. And I would even say that they can both easily kill, depending on how you want to frame that. So one of the big things with the pen is what you leave. It's kind of what you leave behind. And so you're working on things that you're leaving behind. You're leaving behind the Purpose Pod. You're leaving behind nonprofits. You're talking with people and reaching out to the community. And one of my favorite questions I like to ask is 2,000 years from now, the man, the myth, and the legend, Alan Simmons. What do you want people, like, what's the essence of what you want people to know about you?
I would love for people 2,000 years from now to be able to look upon my name and say, well, if Alan did it, I can do it. If Alan reached his goals, I can reach mine. If Alan didn't pull the trigger, I don't have to pull the trigger. If Alan wrote the book, I can write the book. So like you said, that writing it out, like I want people to be able to look at my life and be able to write their own story based on their inspiration from my life. And I mentioned to you about the whole 2000 years from now thing, which is because like I was sitting outside depressed one day, and it was not even years ago. It was like a year ago when COVID hit. Things were happening, and I was sitting outside, frustrated with college, frustrated not knowing where I was going to work and stuff. And I was sitting on the porch, and I had this like moment of like, dang, I'm back at square one. I'm depressed again. And I had this like crazy vision just came on my mind. And I seen the dead Allen, the 2,000-year-old dry bones, maybe dust at that point in time. It's probably dust at that point in time. But and he looked back at me and was pretty much like, you don't have time. You don't have time to just sit there and just mellow in your, in your sorrow. Like, get up, dust yourself off, and move forward. So that's what I would like people to do with their life. I would like them to write their story out. Do not put a period, where like they say, well, don't put a period where God put a comma, So yeah.
Okay. All right. I like that.
Yeah.
And I think because we had a brief pre-show kind of like chat, and I think this might be the best time to kind of talk about this too. And so like in that, there's this idea of death. And I was going through it, and it's kind of a theme in some of your writing, and some of your poetry. And I just kind of like when I open up the discussion, talk about how do we see death, and more importantly, how can we use death, our legacy, to become better.
Good question. So, but so how can we use death, right, to empower our legacy? What was that? What was the last part? How can we use death?
Well, like I guess it's the first part's how do we see death?
How do we see? Okay.
Yeah. So let's address that first. Yeah, let's address that first. Like, how do we see death? Okay. And then we'll go to the next question.
Okay. So I see death in combat boots. I'm just playing. I have a poem, and I talk about it like where death is pretty much just like on a mission to come and get me. And when I was going through PTSD and the top parts of it, I felt death coming my way. I felt death tiptoeing through my hallway. I felt it sneaking in my home and trying to kill me. Like, I felt it close by. And when I was in Afghanistan, that's when I knew that death is really on the other side like that. It's a thin line, and I was afraid of death. I was more afraid because I wasn't even living in my purpose. I was afraid of death because I realized that I had not accessed the greatness inside of me. And I was like, I'm going to die before my time. And that was the kind of thing I had in my head. I was like, I'm going to die before my time. But now I use death. I use my fear of death, and I face it. And I say, well, if you're coming for me, you're going to find me at the best moments of my life. You're going to find me doing everything that I said I was going to do. You're going to find me not quitting. Death is, if you're coming for me, like, you're going to find me at the top of who Alan Simmons can be, whether it's before even if it's before I become a millionaire. That won't define my greatness. My greatness is me accepting who I am, accepting all my flaws, accepting my childhood, accepting the hurt, accepting the pain and the joy, and saying, I am satisfied. And if I die, my legacy will live on. Miles Monroe, he was a great speaker. He said, he was a preacher. He said, if I die and my ministry dies, I have done nothing. If I die and my ministry dies, I have done nothing. So when I leave this world, I want someone to be able to carry on what I have created, or I want what I have created to always live, like the book. I want it to live continuously, right? So that's how I see death.
And then how do we use death to maintain that legacy? Or I don't know maintaining that, because I get a little weird when I say maintain, because I think maintain's not good. I think it's how do we use that, to kind of, how do we use death to help propel the future forward?
I like that, because death is in the future, Hey, look, death is in the future of all of us. So how can we use death to propel ourselves forward for the future? Is to accept death, accept the inevitable, accept the misfortunes, and accept, like I said, accept ourselves, because a lot of people who experience death, some of them aren't even satisfied with their lives. They're not satisfied with who they are. So death does its toll. It rips them from the family, and everybody's torn apart. But when you have someone that has lived a life that, everybody can say, man, Alan really did go all out. He gave everything. I don't want to promise myself a future, right? I want to promise myself the now. So in this, whether death comes at 2:00, 3:00, or 4:00 in the future, I am living in the now, right? I'm focusing on what I want now. Yes, have a vision, have a plan, of course, but don't get so caught up on the future that you haven't done anything with the present. You haven't lived it out right now. So that's what I have for that. I like that.
I'll give you my secrets after the show.
Yeah, please do. Please do. I need it.
Okay. All right. So talking about the crown, that's leadership, that's self-confidence, it's leadership, it's discipline, and it can be considered achievement as well. So when I look at the crown and I ask these types of questions, what has been one of the burdens that you've had to take responsibility for, that it's really weighed your head, at going through your journey so far?
The biggest burden that has weighed my head. I would want, man, that's a tough one, because there's so many burdens. But no, but I would say, as a son to my father, I have never wanted to shame him. I'm Alan Levi Simmons. His name is in Levi. His name is Levi Simmons. So, I think the biggest burden, which isn't like a terrible thing, but it's, I want to make this name, respected. And, I am a shadow of my father, and I want to make sure that I carry this name well. That's why when it's like Alan Levi Simmons, I accepted that, because I realized the weight that I am carrying. I am carrying future generations. I'm carrying a name that could die off, or it could live forever. So when I walk this world, it is a heavy burden. Sometimes I want to quit, James. Sometimes I want to give up. Sometimes I don't want to go to work. Sometimes I don't want to do the podcast. Sometimes I don't want to show up, right? But the fact that I'm living for something greater than myself is that burden that has become my crown, in a sense, because I have accepted that burden, and I am empowered by that burden more so now than ever.
And then I guess what's the hardest habit from that? What's the hardest habit to break that enables you to be disciplined? And maybe it's not breaking a habit. Maybe it's just acknowledging that habit.
Yeah. I got bad habits, but I do, bro. I do. I could be lazy. I could be, complacent. Very complacent at times. I could surround myself with so much things to do that I don't want to do anything. So I would say my number one bad habit is complacency. I get complacent sometimes because it's not fast paced like the Marine Corps. Life isn't moving that fast, and I could just do what I want, and that's the one thing. And then the quitting is like, dude, I have quit I've quit every job pretty much I've worked. I've quit, I have. And so that never quit in the middle is the thing that I'm trying to tell people. I'm not going to do this anymore. This is the thing I struggle with. I struggle with quitting. I quit. And my wife can tell you guys, I'm like, all right, I want to give up, but I can't because of my mantra. I can't give up because everybody would, if I quit, people will say, well, what was all of that about? Right. So I put that on myself because I knew that I can let myself down, but to let everyone else down, I don't want to do that. So I won't let that my habit of quitting, prevent me from being great.
What is your biggest? Is quitting your biggest fear when leading other people, or is there another fear that you don't want to come out, or you want to overcome?
Man, failure. I think it's a common fear with a lot of people, but for me, failure. I failed a lot. Obviously, like I said, I quit a lot, so I failed a lot. Dropped out of school, so but yeah, failure is my arch enemy, right? Like failure stands at every opportunity, and I say, well, if I can't get people to watch my podcast, I'm a failure. If I don't get people to get me to buy my book, I'm a failure. If I don't get speaking engagements, I'm a failure. I had those things do exist in my mind, those things, and I battle it every day. I battle it every day. I have to look myself in the mirror and be like, dude, this is the life you chose. Make something happen. Like every day, when I want to just shut my laptop down, shut my phone off, and be like, you know what? I'm just going to accept failure and just be the guy that could have been great, and now he's a failure. But it's so every day, man, I'm battling it, and people don't even think that because I smile, I'm all energetic, I'm just full of life. But failure, let's cut that part. So people don't know that I'm this energetic. They know that I'm this energetic guy. I'm filled with all this life, but they don't know that I battle with failure every day. I battle with it every day, and not that it's going to cause me to commit suicide because I've gained more power in myself over that, but it could cause me to give up, so that's my biggest battle, man.
Awesome. Okay. And then looking at the ground so far, what has been your greatest achievement?
Ooh, besides being a husband, I'm just fine. That's from my wife. That was getting brownie points. My greatest,
you're right.
My greatest achievement was publishing this book, Can I Speak? Because I'm from Somerville, aka Charleston, somewhat aka, but close by Charleston, and I speak improper English all the time. I don't like when people read my stuff and they're like, man, that was beautifully written. I'm like, what? Like, that's crazy. Because I know that little boy is still inside of me that people used to make fun of when he would say certain things wrong. He would use wrong words in a sentence. And it's like, oh, you don't use it that way. My wife gets on me still to this day sometimes too. So I know that I'm not the best person with words per se. Like I'm not the one with the largest vocabulary and I can make everything sound so great, but I have a way to make simple things simple and beautiful. And I had to accept that. So writing this book has been the biggest achievement because it has shown me that you don't have to be the best writer or the best with grammar and pronunciation and enunciation and sentence structures, but you just have to pour out your heart. So this book is blessing me. Even if I don't sell 1 million copies, the fact that I can look at it and see my face and the words, can I speak, is me asking myself like, hey, can I speak? Are you willing to let these words out? And that's what I'm willing to do. So
it's a short read, everyone.
It is a short
read. Very short read. And it's very powerful read. I highly recommend it.
Thank you so much.
So Alan, we're going to kind of start to wrap up and kind of go into some summary stuff.
Mm-hmm.
We in this conversation we talked about really how your encounter with PTSD and other events led you on a path to start finding a way to fight back. I think, and again, this is me summing this up, so let me know if I'm off. And you fought back against those odds, against those symptoms of malevolent. I can't say it. So, you fought against those symptoms,
Mm-hmm.
and you chose to never stop, never quit, and repeat. And take on that burden, so that way that purpose shines through and empowers other people. The good news is you're definitely not a failure in more ways than one, because if we look at what legacy you're leaving behind, it's already like Alan Levi Simmons is going to be a name that's going to be at least remembered in the Raleigh-Durham area.
Yeah.
And codified forever in the Purpose podcast. That's for sure.
Thank you, sir.
And it has been amazing to have this conversation with you, and you share your story and going through the Meaning Forge symbology. Is there anything that maybe you learned from today's conversation?
Yeah, I realized that I don't give myself a lot of credit. Being interviewed is different than doing the interviews. It's a lot different. And sometimes we do so much and we don't give ourselves the credit because we're so tough on ourselves. We're like, should have did this, could have did this. But, being here today, you've given me this, the process, the forging process is so beautiful. Like, I wish I could just steal it and be like, the Purpose Pod, this is the forge, y'all. Let's get it. But I'm about to take you through a process. But I just love how, like, you took me from this process with the intro to the hammer, to the sword, to the crown, and it has brought so much clarity in my journey. I was like, wow, like, now I'm thinking about my life, and I can hear the clinking of the clank, clank with the hammer against the sword, and the crazy thing is, and I just realized it just now, is that the hammer was beating against the sword, so and you're forging that sword, but the hammer is so important. So I just really am thankful that I got the opportunity to go through the forging process with you, because as I went through this, I have accepted the forge. I have accepted the process that I had to endure even more now than ever. So I really do appreciate that.
I appreciate that as well. And again, your stuff will be linked in the bottom description for the Purpose Pod. And I cannot stress enough that you have great interviews as well, and great conversations, and all finding purpose in life.
Yeah.
So, again, check out his book, Can I Speak, by Alan Levi Simmons. Right?
Yeah.
It's a quick read. It is only the page numbers here.
Is it in
it's 136 pages.
136 pages.
But it's mostly poetry. So poetry you can read a little bit, a little differently, but it is definitely worth your time. And again, I can't stress it enough. Thank you for coming on. Now, we'll do a quick little transition, and I don't have the last word on my show. You do.
Okay.
And
well, it's done.
Exactly. And so this is going to go out to somebody who's watching this, in the future. It's like you're one-on-one with them. You have the final words. The only thing you need to do is just tell me when you're done by a thumbs up or something like that.
Okay.
And that is it. So let's go forward from there.
Okay. Are you doing? Don't let failure imprison your mind, bring scoliosis to your spine and leave you bent. You were born to be great, set aside to be great. Your every breath is more precious than diamonds and pearls. Step out from this world and take a leap into your destiny. Look into the mirror and see what others cannot. You are royalty. Your loyalty should be shown by how much you have grown. Seeds of failure and success have both been sown, but please don't step down from your throne. Keep marching, keep moving. You are almost home. Did anyone hear your dreams and said they had no meaning? Did anyone hear your story and instructed you to stop dreaming? If so, let them go. Let them watch God take you from the valley into your promised land. Take my hand as I remove you from this quicksand. Fly with me. Gather your feathers, lift up your head, and aim to the stars with me. Stretch and reach the heights with me. Unbreakable people will be tested by pressures that measure their durability. Do you believe in your ability? Do you believe in God's ability? You are unbreakable. Thank you, James. Thank you, Meaning Forge family. I appreciate you guys. God bless. Peace.